And for those who come on later, they'll be able to click and watch it later. But thank you all so much for coming on an August evening. We're so glad to have you. My name is Christy Yates. I'm the Associate Director with Theological Horizons, and I've been here for about 7 years now and graduated from UVA in 1999 and made my way back. And I'm really grateful to be a part of this wonderful organization that I wish was there when I had been at UVA. So we are about 25, going on 30 years old now, started by Charles and Karen Marsh. And we are a ministry to students. We're not affiliated with any denomination, but we are a gathering of students from all different denominations and seekers. And we have multiple programs that you're going to get to learn a little bit more about from some of the different students and alumni that are going to share today. But I especially work with our fellows program, which you'll learn more about. And we have a weekly lunch on Fridays that you're also going to hear a little more about, that's open to anyone. And lots of resources online for parents and family that are far away, and also events that we have. We have different speakers that come on that we host throughout the year, or just fun events. Sometimes we have movie nights or hikes or prayers under the ginkgo tree on the lawn. So once you sign up for our email list, which I think you hopefully are all on now, you'll get notifications about all those events. But I'm going to hand it over to Grace now, who's going to share a little bit. Grace is a recent UVA alum who is now working with us. We're so excited in the first ever leadership associate position. And she's going to be helping with a lot of our programs, and especially helping me with connecting more with students and different campus ministries. And we're really excited to have her on board. And she's also going to be working with Deeper Dialogues, which she's going to tell you a little more about. But we're going to go through, and some folks are going to get to share, and then there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So just feel free to think of your questions, and we'd love to talk with you about that after. So Grace.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy, for that really lovely introduction. So as Christy mentioned, yes, my name is Grace. I am a recent graduate of UVA. So I graduated in 2021. So actually that's this year, isn't it? Feels like simultaneously really long ago, but also not so much. But yeah, so I just graduated and I've just come on staff with Theological Horizons as a leadership associate. So basically, like Christy mentioned, I'll be helping out with a lot of the programs that we have to offer. And I think that one of the things that's really special about Theological Horizons is just the sheer variety of programs that we do offer. One of them that I'll highlight, you'll hear about the rest of them as everyone else kind of goes through and mentions a little bit, but I work with Deeper Dialogues. So this is a program with Theological Horizons where we focus on bringing together different members of the UVA community. So we bring together students, we strive to bring together UVA faculty and administration, and we strive to bring together members of the Charlottesville community too. Both Christians and non-Christians, seekers, believers, everyone is welcome. And in these deeper dialogues, it's typically structured around a certain topic. So topics that we've done have included inspiration, resilience, and some topics that are upcoming are, let's see if I remember off the top of my head. I think we have hope and health coming up. So these are just times where all of these different stakeholders in the UVA community get to come together and just have a really vulnerable and really open conversation about, just their experiences, about their thoughts, about their beliefs, and all of that surrounding these topics. So I think that one thing that Theological Horizons does really well in all of this is provide a space where believers can come together, but also people who are, like I mentioned earlier, seeking or just trying to figure out faith, which I think is really special. I think a lot of on-campus ministries, of course, do a really great job of promoting Christian fellowship and creating communities where Christians can gather. But I think one thing that's unique about Theological Horizons is that there are these avenues where people who don't necessarily come from a faith background, or who don't necessarily, maybe attend a church regularly or see themselves as a key member of a religious group, can still feel welcome and still feel at ease, or, like they can easily walk into a gathering with people of other faiths. So yeah, I think that it's, especially as I think about my own UVA experience, that's something really unique and really valuable. I think not only is this a really cool way to, just share, um, personal beliefs like Christian beliefs and faith with others, but also a really wonderful way to connect with people who come from different backgrounds than I do. And yeah, just it's been really cool getting to help to plan these dialogues for these upcoming months. And yeah, I really hope that you guys would check us out in the coming months because we would love to have you and all that you bring to the table.
Mm. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, definitely.
How do they get to know? Is Deeper Dialogues open to anyone? Is there a way to RSVP for those?
Yeah, that's a great question, Christy. So Deeper Dialogues, let's see. At the moment, we're still kind of in the planning stages for our upcoming talks in September and November. However, if you subscribe to the Theological Horizons newsletter, you should be seeing a couple of updates. We will be having kind of a registration form for those events a little bit further on in the month, in the semester. But yeah, I would totally recommend it. I think it's a really great way, a really special way to meet other people on ground, not only students, but also faculty and Charlottesville community members, like I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Grace. So Walter is also a graduate of 21, and he was a Horizons Fellow. And so he's going to tell you a little more about both what a Horizons Fellow is and what that meant to him, and just generally more about his time with Theological Horizons at UVA.
Great, thank you, Christy. So yeah, like Grace, I just graduated this past spring, and I share those feelings of it not really feeling real, but here we are. So in terms of the Horizons Fellows, that was something that I found out about in the spring of my third year. So when we were all locked indoors, I got a group message from a friend of mine who happened to be a Perkins Fellow that I think you'll hear about later as well. And she mentioned this program for rising fourth years to get together once a month and have discussions about vocation and calling, and to kind of hash out difficult questions on that subject. To back up a little bit, I am a bit of a late bloomer for Theological Horizons. So for those of you rising first years who are here, congratulations. I wish I was in your position because I really didn't hear much about Theological Horizons before then. I had heard a number of things rather, but just kind of random bits and pieces here of, oh, that sounds interesting. And so it wasn't until the Horizons Fellows that I really got a chance to really dive in. And I'm really glad I did. So maybe to explain a little bit about what got me interested, there are three things, one of which was mentorship, which is a key component of this program. It's pretty unique as well, because you do have fellowships, of course, at UVA amongst a lot of students, but it's pretty rare, I think, to have such a dedicated program with someone outside of the student body that you meet with regularly. So I was paired with a local high school teacher. His name's Jerry. We're still in touch. He actually texted me today, and we met, every 2 weeks in his backyard and just talked about things that we were talking about as a group. So once a month, all the students would get together, and we would have discussions about many different things related to calling. So calling and constraint, calling and lament, calling and so many other different things that were integral to the specific time of life we were in as we're trying to figure out what we're doing with our lives and all of that. So that pairing of getting together with other students to discuss things, as well as getting to talk one-on-one with a mentor, was really, really vital. Also, in terms of COVID, I thought it was really cool that we had a chance to actually socialize a little bit with other people at UVA. We did so safely, but it was really cool to have that dedicated time. So yeah, I think in terms of what I got out of it, it was a really great chance to lean into some difficult questions and kind of have honest conversations with my peers about how I feel about moving on from college and what's the point of of life and everything like that, small questions like that. So it was really great to have that sort of community. And also, kind of like Grace mentioned, they're not all from one specific fellowship. So there are a lot of people that I might not have crossed paths with, or people I wouldn't have met otherwise. So that was really great to have a diverse body of opinions and backgrounds to really understand these things through. As I said, I'm still in touch with my mentor. So yeah, I'm sure you can find more information online or ask other people, but yeah, I really would recommend, if you get the chance, to look more into it.
Thank you, Walter. So Anne she's a rising fourth year, and she's going to be a Horizons Fellow this coming year. And also she's going to be an intern with us for our Vintage program. And so I wanted her to share a little bit about Vintage, because the Horizons Fellow, you actually can't apply to be that until you're a fourth year. Perkins Fellows is open to anyone, and you'll hear more about that hopefully if Michelle Abon gets on. If not, I will share about that in a little bit. But Vintage Lunch is every Friday, and it's open to everyone. You're all welcome. So I'm going to let Anne share a little bit about her experience with TH and what Vintage is and what Vintage has meant to her, and just maybe why you should come and check it out.
Yeah. So like Christy said, my name's Anne. And like Walter, I didn't get a very early start with Theological Horizons, unfortunately, but I went to, my first event was a Vintage Lunch with my house. A bunch of my housemates were big fans, and so they convinced me to come. I was really excited. And I can't say I've missed many since, because they're just so much fun. But yeah, especially amidst COVID, it's just nice. It's been nice. We went to the Bonhoeffer house where the director, Karen Marsh, lives. We're just in her backyard. So I remember walking up to my first one and having an amazing spread of lunch. Every week you get some delicious lunch, which is a wonderful oasis from the college meals of whatever you can scrounge together, which is what I was used to. So every week we come on Friday and eat this delicious lunch and meet new people or catch up with old friends that we haven't seen in a while. And it's just a time of community. And then we gather around in a circle or two spread out circles during COVID. And Karen Marsh will pick a saint or a important religious figure each week to discuss. It's usually someone that has intrigued her or inspired her or has made an impact on our local community. So it's always an interesting read. So she'll read to us, and then she will either ask some discussion questions or just add provoking thoughts that anyone in attendance can add to, or just to start some discussion and some reflection. And I always look forward to her stories and her readings. We often focus on reflection, thankfulness, and the importance of turning away from the standards of the world and living your life in the way that God calls you to do, which is always very inspiring. And I can say I never usually left a lunch without either having a new perspective on some passage, new gratitude for the world around me, or some new strategy or approach for my time, like quiet time with the Lord. So I was very thankful for that. And I was very thankful for just a break from the rigor of academics at UVA, which can often be very overbearing, very just a lot of pressure. So it's just something sweet to look forward to and that you can always count on. And I highly encourage it. And I highly encourage you guys to come and meet new friends and meet Theological Horizons staff and Karen herself, because they're also very wise and gracious, and I've loved getting to know them. And yeah, I just encourage you guys to come, and I hope I see you guys there.
Thanks, Anne. Vintage Lunch actually started in Karen's dining room with a few students and meals that she would cook on the stove, and it's grown a lot from there. We've now expanded out of their living room into a nearby building called Common Grounds, that we're still waiting to see where we can be during COVID. but we will for sure be letting you all know. The first one is August 27th between 12 and 2. So definitely mark your calendars to drop by then. And Michelle Aban just joined us. Thank you. She had to work until 8 o'clock. So we're so grateful you were able to jump on. Michelle Aban is also a recent graduate, but from 2020. And she has been a Perkins Fellow and also lived in the Perkins House. And she's now, in addition to working full-time with a nonprofit called Literacy Volunteers, she's working to help direct our Perkins House this coming year. So Michelle, I'd love for you to talk both about Perkins Fellows and then about the Perkins House and what they are and what they've meant to you and why you would recommend them to others.
Perkins House and Perkins Fellows, they both share the name Perkins after Dr. John Perkins, who is this incredible man who is like a civil rights warrior, deeply rooted in faith, and has like a mission of transforming communities and learning how to really love your neighbor well, and especially across racial lines, with his own personal experience of like racism and discrimination. So the Perkins Fellow, I joined my third year and I was just looking for something different. I had a bunch of questions and a lot of things were coming together about faith and race. And there was just so many things that I was seeing of like, the world isn't as it should be. And I believe God cares about this, but like, I don't feel like I have space to like talk about this. There doesn't feel like there are people who I can like come to, or it feels very separated. But I'm like, I'm reading these things. I'm like, things are coming together, but where it feels like God is saying that these things are together. So I like got the application from someone who was a Perkins Fellow, and in the fellowship, we each had a community partner. And what was really cool is there wasn't any like strings attached. There wasn't any forms that we needed to sign, that we were just walking with a community partner throughout the year. And then we would have monthly meetings where we were debriefing, just thinking through like what it was teaching us about Charlottesville, about ourselves, about our future vocations. And just it felt like a space where I could be like, so I'm seeing these things. I'm seeing how certain communities are without, and there's like history behind that is important to know about. There's ways that I can act and think through my everyday. And it was just a really cool space to just, again, like put things together and recognize that God cares about justice, because he cares about us holistically. And so from the Perkins fellows that I did, third and fourth year lived in the Perkins house, which was definitely God being like, this is your next step. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I'm so scared. But in the Perkins house, I feel like it was just taking the things we learned from Perkins fellows and really like grounding it in a space. As there was 5 students and we lived in an intentional community where, again, there wasn't any agenda, but just to be neighbors and learn how to love and like care about our neighbors and just learn about Charlottesville outside of a school context. Just these really cool moments where like, as I'd like walk off the bus to the Perkins house, I was like shedding off student and felt like I could be like a full, like 3-dimensional human, and just get to like the things that I was like reading about in books and like hearing about the history. Like I could like see it and have this like 3D map and actually make it personal. And I think these 2 programs have been just really great about like these questions that I had. There are other people who have questions too, and that we can challenge each other, and we can also like come back and be like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm reading in the Bible, this is what I'm experiencing, like how do they all fit? And it was just really cool, especially the last 2 years, just so many different things happening, feeling like I could put those pieces together. and like stand here now where it's like they're still coming together, but they're making like more sense of like God cares about us growing deeper in relationship with him, and he cares about justice, and he sees the things that are going on, and he sees that there's like inequity, and that he's like in the center of all of those things at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. So for you all undergrads, the Perkins Fellows is available to you to apply to at any time. And like Michelle said, you'd be serving once a week with a nonprofit. And it's pretty unique. There's not a place that I know of on grounds where there is ongoing reflective service learning through a faith lens. There's a lot of one-off service trips or alternative spring breaks. But if you really want to investigate community engagement and whatever vocation that might look like, and wrestle with issues of social justice through some book readings, that's a great opportunity. The Perkins House is just for women, so that you can apply to in the fall for the following year. And all of these resources are on our website. We'll keep referring back there, but I would love to thank you all for sharing, those of you who shared. I'd love to open it up now for any questions of the folks who shared. We also have 2 board members on that can also be a resource, but go ahead and ask anything that comes up, or if anyone wants to share anything else they thought of.
While they're thinking, let me ask one question on Deeper Dialogues. Grace, this year for Deeper Dialogues, last year it was done on Zoom because of COVID. But this year, is the plan for them to be in person? And will there be any Zoom part of it, or is it going to be all in person, or do you know yet?
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for that question. So I think at the moment we are trying to see how things progress with this new wave of COVID, the Delta variant. I think for the most part, we're hoping to perhaps be in person, but at the same time, I think in COVID times, things are a little bit, uncertain, but I'm hoping in person, at least at the moment.
Well, I did both of the ones last, was it winter and spring? The first one was the assistant to the president. And it was a young man who had never had a problem in his life with health, got married, and he just went off the deep end. His health was terrible. And I'm sure his poor new wife wondered what in the world, but he talked about resilience and about the support he got. And it was an incredible evening. And then once we heard him speak, and this again was on Zoom, so I'm assuming if you were doing it in person that you would go to different rooms or something to discuss. But we all split up into different rooms and had discussions, and it was one of the most meaningful evenings I've spent in a long time. And I really, really enjoyed it. And then the second one was a woman who works at the university. And what is her role? Christy, do you know, or do you know, Grace?
I don't remember what her role was.
But anyway, she talked about the history of her family, who generations ago had been slaves, and it was on the idea of justice and what do we do going forward? And again, we had discussions that night, and it was just really good. It was, both of them were among the most meaningful evenings I've spent in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see I don't know whether I'll be in Charlottesville or not, but if you do it, if you end up doing it on Zoom, I definitely will tune in. But it's something I can highly recommend to you students to get involved with.
Thank you, Nancy, for that. 2 other events that are going to be coming up that you can keep your ears open for. One is our faith and work lunch that we do, one in the fall and one in the spring. And we have speakers lined up for the fall. It's Dr. Danny Avula. He graduated from UVA and he's been the head of the COVID response for the state of Virginia. So we're so excited to have him come and share. That'll be in October. And you all are welcome to that. You just need to RSVP, and we provide a lunch and an intimate conversation where Dr. Avula is going to get to share openly about his faith journey as well as his work in public health. And then in the spring, we have, I think, Dean Jenkins, who I don't know as well, but we're really excited to have her share. She's a dean at UVA. And that will be in the spring. And each of those are going to have, we now have a new format of having students or recent grads interview the speaker. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then one other big event next April, we have a woman named Kate Bowler. She's a professor at Duke University and an author and speaker. She's been on the TED stage, and she's just incredible. Her story about battling cancer, but also looking at the prosperity gospel, and she's got a podcast and several books out, and we're really, really excited to host her in April. And that's going to be in Old Cabell Hall. So another opportunity for you all to RSVP and just show up right on grounds to this incredible speaker. And I'm really looking forward to that event in the spring, and to have so many people hopefully together, Lord willing, we will get there.
One of the things that I think is most exciting about Theological Horizons I've had before is that for some of them, I've been told, let's say you go to the Friday lunch and then there's discussion afterwards, but you may have a class right after that. There's no judgment. You can come and eat and leave. Is that right, you all? And but if you can stay, it provides a rich follow-up to the lunch in terms. So I just think it's such a great program because you get opportunities to participate, but there's not, I gather, a lot of pressure and commitment that says you have to, if once you join, you've got to do this and this and this and this. And so your schedules are going to be busy, Nathan and Ellie, and so there'll be times when you might have time to plug into something like this, but there'll be other times when you wouldn't. And my sense is the more you do, the more you get involved, the more you'll probably enjoy it, but there's not pressure to do certain things.
So I'll also add, so I'm on the board, and my daughter Molly got involved in Theological Horizons from her first year, and it was really helpful for her coming from Atlanta and going off to school to have a community where she felt welcomed immediately, felt like she had friends, and Karen took her under her wing, and Karen's always there as a resource, someone that you can talk to if you are just having a bad day, and she'll take you to walk her dog Ginger. And it's just a great, and as a parent, it's really nice to know that Karen is a resource for your children. And just my daughter found it just a really helpful thing coming from out of town. And even as we said, it's for Christians and people who are questioning, and it doesn't matter if you have friends that are like, I don't know about this, you can bring them, and the talks are interesting no matter what. And so it's just that, and you get a free lunch at Vintage. So that's always a plus. So just a little plug there.
Thank you for that. And now our staff keeps growing. So we have lots more people available to go for walks or get coffees. We got Taylor and Grace, and I'm also available. So, and Michelle, with if you have any extra time left in your busy schedule, Michelle, you also I know would be available. Well, I'm going to tell you just about a couple things coming up, golly, next week. And one of them you might not have heard of because we are not hosting it, but the Christian Study Center, which you might have heard of if you haven't, it's another wonderful ministry and just sort of outpost of Christian faith and scholarship and thinking. And we work in partnership with them oftentimes, but they have a big welcome back lunch on Wednesday and Thursday, the 18th and 19th between 12 and 2. And Grace and I will be there on Wednesday and Thursday, but there'll be representatives from all different fellowship groups that are going to be there. So that's a wonderful place just to go and meet people and learn about different fellowship groups. So I'd really recommend popping by there if you have it in you and you're not too overwhelmed. And then also, if you do that and you're hot and tired, you can come to the lawn number 18. And we have this information on our website, but we'll be hosting iced lattes on the lawn. We'll also have non-latte drinks for those that need that, and snacks. But if you are there, if you've got parents or friends, please feel free to stop by between 1 and 3. Is that right, Grace? 1 and 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 18th. And so you can go right from the study center to the lawn. It's all really close. Or you could do the study center on Wednesday, and Thursday come to the lattes on the lawn. But the lattes on the lawn will just be Theological Horizons friends and alumni, and you all are welcome. And that's just another time to actually see us in person and get a snack and a cold drink, and hopefully just a little respite, because I'm hoping it won't be as hot as I think it's going to be the next couple of days, because that's no fun for moving in. But we are really, really excited to welcome you all to Grounds. Even though you're in Charlottesville, Nathan, I know it's another world to go on to Grounds and be in that community. And is there anything else before we let you go? Any other final questions or thoughts from anyone?
I guess just a really quick thing. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
For the vintage lunches, how many people will there be in general? Like what size is the group?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've had to really adjust. Before COVID, we were averaging around anywhere between 40 and 60 students on a given, that was sort of at our height. During COVID, we obviously had to really scale that down into what was allowed by the university. So I think we were doing 2 separate lunches with maybe 3 different groups, or 2 different groups of 10 or 6. It kept adjusting each month according to what the policies were. So it was a lot smaller, but yeah, I'd say generally 30 to 40 would probably be an average number. But it'll be new to us coming back after COVID to see how things are. And we're still waiting to just kind of get finalized if there's any group restrictions for gathering based on the new Delta variant. So we will just keep posting about that, and what if we have to limit numbers, we'll adapt and try to do like 2 separate lunches, or have 2 different spacing, heavy spaced apart, something like that.
And Nathan, at the height of COVID, if I understand correctly, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that Karen and the staff did in getting creative was to order lunch gift cards for people so they could get their own lunch, and then they would Zoom in with everybody. So there were so many creative steps that they took this last year and a half to try to continue to keep things going really, really well. And I think I saw a couple of the discussions they were doing, and it was great.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we really were trying to adapt and bring food and fellowship to you all in some possible way, even if it looked wonky. We were trying to make that happen. Well, thank you all so much for being with us. I'm glad we've recorded this, so anyone that's missed it can just listen in and get a good overview. It's just so great to see you all and get this sort of the smattering of our different programs, and rather than just one of us talking through the programs, it really means so much to have you all share about the programs, and thank you all for that. And I'm going to end with reading a prayer that Karen reads at the end of Vintage every Friday. So this is something for those of you who've been to Vintage will know well, and it comes I think we both found it probably from Common Prayer, which is a liturgical book compilation of prayers. Shane Claiborne, Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove are some of the authors that compiled it. But I actually just went to their page for the prayers for today, and I'm going to read one little prayer before, and then I'm going to end with the prayer that Karen reads at the end of every Vintage lunch. So God of love and Prince of Peace, give us courage in the face of trouble. Walk with us and give us a power that is not like that of chariots or armies. Arm us with grace. Make our tongues sharp with truth. Walk with us amid the principalities and powers of this dark world. And now the blessing. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. So thank you all again. Nathan and Ellie, we really hope to see you in person in the next couple of weeks, but feel free at any time to email us and reach out with any questions. And all the programs we've mentioned are on our website, and we're available to talk to you and meet with you at any time. So just let us know.
Thank
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have a great night. Go in peace.
you all.
Bye.
Bye.